Hi, and welcome to this webinar on Basefarm's Digital Ability Report. So this webinar will focus on the multi and hybrid cloud adoption. That is a part of our Digital Ability Report. We'll give some analysis on the numbers and some advice on how companies can move forward. So the report was conducted in 2018. We had over 200 respondents. 38% of them were from Norway, 32% from Sweden, and the last 30% was from Western Europe. So it pretty much covered most of our market. So we have divided this into small businesses and mid-sized businesses and large businesses. And there are some differences depending on what kind of organization you are. Previously, we called this report the Cloud Report, and we have added new areas into this Digital Ability Report. That is, in addition to cloud, it's also big data and information security and innovation. And we call the sum of these areas the digital abilities. So we're using this to measure how organizations are able to drive innovation and create digital success and do digital transformation. So this is the agenda. Based on the numbers and from talking with a lot of clients and talking to analysts, we're going to look at 6 megatrends and look into the window towards 2021. What are the biggest trends across all our markets? Then we're going to dive a bit more into the report, look at the numbers, and look at small, medium, and large organizations. What's the top challenges and what is their next step? And then, since all of the companies basically said that security is a major issue, we're going to use a bit of time on that and do a bit of a drill down into the security topic. And for those of you who want to know more about how we work with customers to empower them on digital transformation and digital abilities, I'll spend 4 minutes in the end and just telling you the story about that. Okay, so we asked the respondents, how do you think a company's usage will change within the next 3 years until 2021? And it was not a very big surprise that a lot of them said that the number of workload we have in the public cloud, it's going to increase dramatically. So that's really not a surprise. There's also going to be a drastic shift on workload in the traditional data centers. So the respondents are shooting down their traditional data centers. Now, when that is said, the workload and the applications within these data centers, it's going to go somewhere. It's not going to disappear. So that workload is either going to be shifted into the public cloud or migrated into a private cloud. And looking at the numbers on the private cloud, it seems like the on-premise private clouds, it's gonna decrease, while the private cloud outsourced, it's going to increase. And as you see in the numbers here, the private cloud and the public cloud, they're actually pretty close on adoption. So it's going to be a lot of private cloud outsourcing. And of course, we as an MSP are very happy to see that, in addition to the rapid adoption of public cloud services. So based on these numbers and talking with clients, we see a few trends. So we're going to talk about a few of them. So all these cloud-first strategies, it actually leads to a multi-cloud adoption. And the reason for that is because the hyperscalers, they are not the same. They have complementary services. And for a lot of companies, it's actually a bit random how they start with the hyperscalers, such as AWS and Google and Azure. And the customers will have more than one public cloud, in addition to having workload in private clouds. So because of this adoption and different strategies, it means that workload is going to be optimized for IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And we see customers doing IaaS for lift and shift. We see them doing IaaS for cloud strategies, which means that you can basically take your monolithic application and put it in another cloud. We see PaaS services being adopted rapidly amongst developers in order to speed up development and time to market. And since there are close to 30,000 companies around the globe that offer SaaS services, it's of course something that is going to be adopted amongst our customers and these respondents. So another trend we're seeing, and basing on the numbers that you see here on the right, hybrid IT is going to be a key capability in order to combine your current strength with your new abilities. Now, most of the respondents are not startups, so they have already invested a lot in traditional IT. And even though that workload may be shifted from the local data center to a private cloud to a public cloud, some of this workload will not fit the hyperscaler. So those applications are still going to be there. Maybe it's going to be on-premise data warehouse. It's going to be some applications that you cannot move to the public cloud because of compliance or security or geographical reasons or politics. And you're going to need to do hybrid cloud in order to succeed and in order to combine your current strengths and legacy with the new abilities. And there's a lot of push in the market these days for DevOps and big data. Everyone is talking about AI and machine learning. And what we're seeing is that for those companies that do a right-sized cloud strategy, it's actually an enabler for DevOps and big data. It allows you to get started faster. It allows you to harvest the benefits faster. And you have basically all the components available at your fingertips that allows you to build minimal viable products and do proof of concepts and reach your market and target audience fast and even disrupt others. So all of the respondents said that security is a major concern. It's the biggest concern for companies in the cloud today. And it's not because they do not have security people today that are skilled. It's actually because the threats are very, very different. It's not necessarily about firewalls anymore. It can be about very different things. And since the infrastructure also turned programmatic and code and not configuration files, it's also a gap of competence in order to be able to handle that. Combining that with 3 to 10 times higher development speed, it creates a lot of uncertainty around security, and corporations need to handle this. Last but not least, maybe the biggest obstacle for a lot of companies today is the culture crash between traditional IT and the new culture that is coming in, which is driven by DevOps and programmatic infrastructure. And organizations really need to handle this. They struggle with having access to resources with the right competence, and everyone is looking for these people that can make this transformation possible and combine it with the current strength. And this is something that all companies need to handle in order to move forward. So we've divided the report, the respondents, into 5 different categories. So either they are on the ground, which means that they have no plans at all to adopt cloud services. On the runway, step 2, these respondents just begun their cloud journey. They have maybe one project. They're looking at a flagship project, but they haven't really harvested any benefits yet. Then we have the respondents that say they are ready for takeoff, which means that they have some applications in the cloud, but really not done the strategic alignment yet. On step 4, we have the companies that say that we are in the cloud and we are managing a lot of challenges. We're seeing that we have to scale further. We're having a lot of problems, but we are starting to see results of our cloud journey. And then finally, we have the companies that say we are definitely in the orbit, which means that cloud services is actually the foundation for their business. It's really what their whole business is built on. So 1 out of 3 respondents are actually using cloud services as foundation for the business. Some may think that may be a bit low, depending on how you define cloud services. But taking in considerations that there are many of these clients that still have the traditional data centers, they still have a lot of private cloud internally, it's still a good number. What it takes from this, you see the numbers, it's only 10% that are still on the ground, which means that 90% of the respondents are moving to the cloud. So there's really no way back on this. And there are many companies that are feeling confident. There are many that are ready for takeoff and building new applications and services to their client. So let's look at the small businesses. Now, a lot of the small businesses claim to be in orbit, and it's not so strange because a lot of these companies, they really moved fast to the orbit because of their size. It was maybe only 1 or 2 decision makers, and they could start building these services, roll out the services to their clients, and it was a really efficient start. And now they are starting to see a bit of challenges. They're becoming victim of their own success, and their top concerns is security and compliance. What we also see is that a lot of these companies are not startups, so they are being forced to mix their new cloud services with existing structure and way of working. And that is challenging for them. And that is not necessarily driven by the fact that they really want to do be bi-model, but it might be a requirement for the clients. Maybe they work with clients that need data centers or data to reside in certain areas, or it can even be politics. So a heads up for the small organizations. We see a lot of small businesses claiming to do DevOps. And DevOps is a good thing. It's a culture that is there for you to write better software and services. We also see that a lot of these clients, the reasons why they have these challenges is because they're not doing the ops part of DevOps. So they struggle to maintain their costs over the cloud. They struggle with implementing automation. They struggle with the deployment processes, and then they're not really doing DevOps the right way. And also, these clients are feeling the pain on hybrid, where they have to combine all the new abilities with their legacy, and that is often due to customer demands. And if you work with customers, for instance, in the energy industry, it's not necessarily that you can take all your data and services and put it into a hyperscaler service. So for these companies to take the next step, we have some suggestions. So we have cloud advisory services, and we have our cloud foundation that basically solves some of the basic security and compliance issues for you. And our DevOps services that allows you to really get the benefits from DevOps the way it's supposed to be. So for companies that have less than 1,000 employees, a lot of them are really mature. Only 11% of them are still on the ground. And the majority of them is on the more mature side of cloud adoption. So what it seems is like their developer teams, they've had a lot of success with getting workloads into production. These companies may have several development teams, both insourced and outsourced, and they have sort of bimodal development team. So these clients are feeling pain both on the traditional IT side and on the hyperscaler side. They have scaling issues for the development teams, and they are struggling to keep their development teams lean and mean. Now, the reason for that is that they are becoming, again, victim of their own success. They are stating that implementing security into our development process is one of the top next step. Security is a major concern for them, and they are fighting with compliance. A big worry for them is also that they are being forced to mix the cloud services with their traditional processes and structures and way of working. So a heads up for these clients is that, container platforms, it can be used for more than microservices. You don't have to only do really modern applications in order to have benefits from containers. You can use it for monolithic applications. You can use this to adopt a hybrid and a multi-cloud strategy. And it can be a really helpful thing when you want to do lift and shift to the cloud with your monolithic applications. Another heads up to these companies is that security should be adapted to development and not the other way around. What you have done on security for the past 20 years, it's still relevant, but you need to add on more to that security competence in order to put security into code and security as part of your development process. So some suggestions for these companies is to look at our cloud advisory services. Again, our cloud foundation that will give you some of the basic features on security and compliance, so you don't have to worry so much about that. And DevOps and DevSecOps in order to implement security into your development processes. And even shifting legacy systems to the cloud can be an enabler for you. And then the container platforms, infrastructure as code, automated governance, it should be all things that you consider when you want to modernize or rebuild your applications, and also when you want to do lift and shift from your traditional data center. So the large organizations, there seems to be a pretty big gap on maturity. You have some large organizations that are very mature, they're feeling very confident. And after talking with a few of these clients, what some of them did was actually to carve out a whole division that is working purely cloud native and don't have to deal with existing corporate structure and governance. And so there are some large companies that do that, and they seem to be having quite some success. However, most of the large businesses are claiming themselves that they have some way to go. There are some that are ready to take off, and there are some that are on the runway, but they are struggling with the missing cloud strategy and security and governance and hybrid. It's a major obstacle for these companies, and there's a lot of internal politics into these companies to be sorted out before they can really take off. For the companies that are very mature, hybrid integrations is starting to become difficult, and they need to leverage that legacy in order to move forward and really to be successful. And security is a major concern for these companies. So some heads up for these types of companies is that digital transformation, it is a culture shift. It's not just a new technology. So if you treat application modernization or digital transformation, if you treat it as a VMware upgrade or just a technology thing, you're going to have a lot of challenges that you might be able to avoid if you had treated transformation as a culture shift, which includes processes, it includes people, it includes how you work with HR, and it also how you do your operative model. We're hearing a lot of discussions on ITIL versus DevOps in large organizations. And in our eyes, DevOps is very complementary to ITIL. DevOps is a culture that is there for you to write better software and services, and ITIL is an operational framework. They are meant to solve different things, and they are complementary. So if you can combine these two, you're going to have a lot of strengths in your organization, and you're probably going to be more successful than maybe your competition. And the advantage large organizations have is that they have a lot of legacy. They have a strong brand, many of them. They have a lot of money, and that legacy can be your strength to disrupt others if you put your money behind your strategy. So it's a lot of opportunities out there for large organizations to really leap forward fast if they make up their mind and take the steps. So just a few suggestions for enablements. Look at our cloud advisory services. Again, our cloud foundation will help you get started in a safe and a secure way. And by doing that, you can start fostering the DevOps culture or the DevSecOps culture that you need in order to do application modernization or to add security into your development processes. And again, for shifting the legacy systems and handling multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, we recommend that you look at container platforms, and probably you should mix it with some sort of infrastructure as code. So you get the governance, you get the reproducibility, and you get the scalability from day one. Now, since security was such a big issue for a lot of the respondents, I'll spend one slide on that. And as you can see here on the figure to the left, about 70% are having concerns regarding the competence and resources and internal understanding of security threats. So it's not that they do not have security people today, but the understanding and the competence is actually, it's a big concern. And then 20% are saying that the time it will take to discover a breach, that's a major concern. So based on these answers, you can ask yourself, do we have the right competence? Has security become more than just firewalls? How do we answer fake news on Twitter? How do you avoid that your stocks will fall if someone posts something that is wrong about you? Who responds to that? Is it the marketing department? Is it the security department? How do you handle security breach in your code? How do you handle the fact that you have been breached but you don't know about it? What is security becoming in the future? And it's not that the competence you have today is not important anymore. It's just that you need to add more to that to be able to handle the future. And also take a look on your budget and look at which capability are you really spending most of your security budget on. A lot of companies are spending a lot of money on protection, and they don't spend any money on identification or actually handling the threat. So once they are in the spotlight, they are basically compromised, and they are being compromised even without knowing it, because everything was on protection. And for those of you that struggle to find the right security competence, 18% are answering that it's really hard to find these talents. Ask yourself if you are actually looking in the right places. It's not necessarily that you should be using the same recruiter that you have done before. Maybe you should go into the universities, look for talents, or simply look at competence in a different way. So we'll wrap up the security slide with 4 advices. So based on the things that we have seen with clients and also based on reports from the analysts, it seems that it's going to be a lot of new security roles in your organization within 2025. And just as an example, we are being more and more dependent on big data. We need to handle much more data than before. So one advice is to actually hire a data security scientist within your security team that is an expert looking at data and making good use cases based on data. And that is very different than being a traditional risk officer. We also see that security need to adapt to development and not the opposite. You could take a current security framework and push it on your developers, but it would most likely hinder you to actually be able to do the digital transformation. Big data with artificial intelligence and machine learning, it will be a crucial component in order to be able to handle security threats in the future. It's going to be there so you can be more efficient in your security policies, and it's going to be there in order for you to be able to identify the threats and be able to handle them. So if you're not playing around with big data today, it's most likely a good idea to start looking at wrapping a strategy around it. Another advice is to look at API management, and the reason for that is because since you are adopting a lot of different clouds, you are going to need to integrate them, and working with API management, it can do not only wonders for your integration capabilities, but also help you to take control on the security across your hybrid cloud strategy. So that was it for the report. And for those of you who are interested in staying 3 minutes more, I'll just take you really fast through on how we work with clients on digital transformation. So a typical client we have is that they will come to us and they will ask us, how can you help us with digital transformation? And how will you be as an MSP once we have transformed? What can you offer us to help us to enable this digital transformation? So we will help clients do optimization, we'll help them reducing cost, we'll help them to upgrade and lift, we'll help them to enable growth, we'll help them to transform, and basically that is to prevent disruption. And we will also help clients with disrupting others. And these are three very different things, and we really want to set the scene with clients on how we move on this path together. So we will talk with clients about setting up different work streams on strategy, on foundation, on architecture, on governance and operations, just to name a few, in order for them to succeed with their cloud strategy. Now, as a part of that, we developed a service portfolio that allows us to take the customers by the hand wherever they are on the journey and help them move forward. And the feedback from clients, what they're telling us is that they are getting actually more of their innovation into production with us than without us. So we are really trying to be that enabler for our clients in order for them to put more innovation into production. A big part of that is our multi-cloud foundation. So as we saw from the report, there are a lot of challenges on compliance and security. Now, if you work with us, we have built a multi-cloud foundation that allows you not only to speed up your development processes, but it will also take care of a lot of that security threats and a lot of those compliance issues that you have today if you do not have this foundation. When you have that foundation, we will use that to foster your DevOps culture. And what we're doing for customers is that we are solving the basic availability of technology, of platforms and tools, and secure the DevOps culture so you can accelerate that strategy and move faster to market and also to stay in market. And then eventually we will connect our managed services and secure your presence in that market. So this is just an example on how we are ops and DevOps when infrastructure turns code. Now, DevOps, it stimulates to constant changes. This graph shows that, as working with operations in the new world, you have to be able to accommodate a lot of changes. So this shows 1,800 changes in 2 years on the infrastructure for one specific client. And change is seen as a quality, not as a weakness, because you should change your infrastructure in order to be cost effective. You should change your infrastructure in terms of being secure and to be able to protect yourself from threats. So, and adopting infrastructure to your business needs. If your business needs to be agile, so needs your IT services to be as agile. So for clients that are looking to start off with container platforms, we of course offer a lot of infrastructure for that, and we offer all the major container platforms out there. And when you have consumed those IaaS and PaaS services, you can either set up all of these things yourself, or you can work with our professional services or managed services to get control on cost management, set up your CI/CD, do the log analytics, and all the things you need to do on top of the container platforms, no matter if they are in AWS or Azure, or in your data center, or if it's OpenShift. And then eventually, we will help you to do the application management of your microservices. And we all seen that security is a big threat. So we develop multi-tiered security models to work both with SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, and on-prem. So it doesn't matter what consumption model you have for your workloads. Okay, thank you for your attention. That was it for this webinar. It's being recorded and it will be available online. It will be sent out with a link for you to watch later if you want to show it to your colleagues or if you want to send to someone else. Thank you.